walk me through what happened. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I never can, I'm going to say never can escape it, not that I want to escape it, but what happened was that I remember the day in particular, I literally said goodbye to my children and at school, dropped them off at school, and they were about 5 and 7 years old. And I remember, you know, like everyone, 9 to 5 job, had to get on the train quickly, rushing away quickly, give them a kiss on the forehead, see you guys later, and really thinking I was going to see them later as myself, and you know, whatever, I didn't give it any thought. Rushed, got on the train, and you know, started my work, my job. And literally then I was a volunteer coordinator for a charity for the elderly, about a befriending scheme, and reaching out and going into the elderly's home and helping support them in some shape or form. So I worked on that project there, and I did enjoy what I was doing. I loved the contact and help and working alongside social services and counsellors then as well. And I remember the day. What it was is that I was thinking, I have to rush, I have to go pick up the kids from school, everything. You know what it's like, we're in that autopilot, we're always rushing to be somewhere, you know, never really digesting the moment, never being mindful. So I was like rushing around thinking in my head, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to pick this up, what am I gonna do for dinner tonight, I need to do shopping lists, everything you can imagine. So my head was really cluttered. And I was in the office and I was thinking, you know, I've got a letter I need to post for this client. Okay, what I do is if I leave 10 minutes early, which I used to leave the office at 2:30, I remember I left it at 2:20. I left the office and I thought, I've got this letter, I'm going to go to the post office and post it, which meant crossing over the road, then go back and go get the tube and go pick the kids up from school. And I remember leaving the office, saying goodbye to everyone and everyone that was there in this community centre. I said, yeah, see you tomorrow, you know, not giving any thought about anything else, because you don't, because you just take in the moment, you know. I came out of the office, came out of the centre, I walked down to the end of the road. God, I feel tearful, I don't know why. I walked to the end of the road and there was the pedestrian crossing. This is Essex Road in London, in Islington, and there was a pedestrian crossing. You had to press the button. Now, somebody else pressed that button, because I remember physically seeing them press that button. I was like, okay, I don't need to do it. Had the letter in my left hand, I remember it really well. And there must have been 4 or 5 of us crossing the road, and there's an island in the middle, and it was the traffic lights. Now, out of habit of working in London, I always look both ways, whatever part of the road I'm on. And I got to the central crossing, the middle bit, the island, and didn't give much thought about where everybody else was, because there was no need to. And then before the car, well, it was a van, before it was one of those small van things, before it actually hit me, this is the thing, this was the big thing. Before it actually physically hit me, I heard a voice, and it stopped me because the voice sounded like my nan. And my nan died when I was 15. Now I was 30 something years old then. So she'd been gone for some time. And I heard the voice saying, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. And this was before I was actually hit by the van. And I questioned it. I was what? Because it's almost as if it jumped into my head, apart from all the clutter I'd been thinking about, like, oh, I've got to get the train, got to get the kids, got to post this letter. I heard her say that. And I didn't hear anything else. That's all I heard, her voice. And then I thought, God, well, that's stupid. And then all I heard was saying, because I was saying to myself, should I go get the newspaper to read on the train? This is the clutter I had in my head. Should I get the newspaper, which meant crossing the road at an angle, or should I post the letter first, which meant straight ahead? And logically trying to work out the best route, as you do. And then she said very clearly, go and get your newspaper. And I was questioning it even then, obviously, because I hadn't had this awakening. And I was like, that doesn't make sense if I get the newspaper. So she's trying to communicate with me. And I'm still like, it doesn't make sense, because if I do that, then I have to go back on myself and cross the road straight. That doesn't make sense. So I'm arguing with spirit, which I didn't know at the time. That was ridiculous. And so like, oh yeah, what the hell? And so this is all happening sort of really the time concept's very different then, dimension wise is very different. And I was like, okay, I'll go get the newspaper. Like a sulky child, that's how I felt. That saved my life, and I'll explain. If I was told later by the police that if I continued to walk straight across the road to post this letter in this red little letterbox opposite the post office, when the van had hit me, I would have gone through the windscreen, and my head would have been severed. There was no return if I'd gone straight across, as my logical brain was thinking to do. as I was arguing with my gran, telling me to go at an angle, lucky I did, because as I did this, what happened was when the van hit me, it hit me side on. So it fractured my ribs and there was other damage to my body. And I literally bounced off the side of the van and ended up flying 40 feet across the ground and ended up on the middle of the road, sort of whacked down on my right-hand side. So the physical damage was my pelvis on my right-hand side was broken. My knee had been twisted because it took the full brunt. My right foot took the full brunt of the actual impact as well. And I twisted around, sort of snapped everything. So 7 breaks in the x-rays, 7 breaks in my foot. My Achilles was damaged and I had to have ongoing surgery for that. My knee was broken. My ribs on both sides were fractured. My spleen was bleeding. So because the 40 miles per hour, it hits you, the vehicle, you're still vibrating within your body. And my kidneys, my gallbladder, I was bleeding internally. So I didn't obviously know this because at the time, what happened is, so I'd heard a voice, I did what I was told. So I walked at an angle, and then after that, I didn't feel a thing. I didn't feel the impact physically at all. From the moment she started talking to me, this is in March, it's March the 11th. And I remember I had my thick coat on. It was cold, physically cold. But when she started talking to me, I started feeling warm. I started feeling as if there was like a light around me. It was a very bright light, but I could still see with my eyes. I didn't have to squint my eyes. And all I know was that I felt as if she had like a duvet cover around me and was keeping me very warm. And I remember her talking to me, whispering in my ear. And that was one part of it where I was with her. I was being shown stuff. I was being shown scrolls. It felt I was there for a very long time. Now, that was one part of me, as a layer, as a dimension of me. And then the other part, it was very strange. I didn't know I'd been knocked down. All I know is that all of a sudden I was looking down on the road and I could see the traffic. I could hear, there was a Capital Radio playing in the background. Now my physical self was dead in the road, right? And I didn't know this because I'd separated from myself. I had this out of body experience. I remember I could hear Capital Radio and I remember turning around and all of a sudden I was in this lorry in the cab. And I couldn't feel my physical self, nothing like that. But there was this driver and he was cursing, he was swearing, some silly cow has got knocked down. You know, I'd interfered with his day because he was obviously busy, he needed to get somewhere else. And he was radioing, you know, telling whoever head office that he was running late. And then I was there 1 minute and then I looked down again. I didn't know that was my body. And then I could see that lots of people were rushing out of the shops. I remember a lady saying she came out of the hairdressers. She was running out the hairdressers. She rolled up a towel and she was going to put it under my head. Now, how did I know this? Because I was dead. And I could see this and I could see in her face and I could feel the atmosphere. Like when you walked into a room, we were saying about if there's an argument, you can feel it. The atmosphere, everyone had stopped. All the traffic had stopped. There were some people had stopped and they were shocked and some people were screaming, some people were running. And I still didn't know it was to do with me. I had no idea at all. There was no connection to that body at all. And, you know, then there was a family member who happened to be nearby, one of my in-laws, and he actually witnessed everything. He saw it, heard the van screeching, turned around, and he was actually going to the post office. It was a bizarre thing. You couldn't make it up. He turned around and I could see his face and he looked really concerned. His blood had drained from his face. He looked very grey in the face and he was looking and I was like, I can understand what's going on. Why are you so sad? It was like I was asking him, but I wasn't getting no reply back. And the next minute I could then see my partner running down the road because they've got a bakery in that road, Essex Road, and he was running down the road. I still didn't think it was anything to do with me. I had no idea. His mum was running down the road as well, and I could see it in his face. He looked shocked, and so somebody obviously must have told him what had happened. And then, so again, I didn't know it was me. I was just looking down at this body, no attachment to it at all. Then I saw a paramedic arrive on his motorbike and I heard the sirens arriving. Oh, talking about it brings me back to it right now. And so I could sort of hear the sirens. The paramedic came over to my body. I remember him getting off his motorbike, and his motorbike was parked further down the road, and he walked over to me, sort of thing. And oh yeah, there was also a gentleman, which I really wish that I could meet him. A gentleman was talking in my ear, and I could hear the sound. You know, they were saying the last thing to go before you die is the hearing. And he was talking to me, saying, "Hold on hold on in there. Everything's going to be okay." And he kept on saying that to me. And I wish I knew. I'd love to say thank you to him. He was saying, "Holding on there, everything's going to be okay." But I wasn't physically feeling my body at that time. No pain, nothing at all. Paramedic came over and stuff, and I remember that's when it sort of fades away, where I remember I was then being shown some stuff. I remember that. Then my partner actually bent down and touched my head, and then automatically I felt his feelings coming through. So as a medium now, it's very similar. When I feel the loved ones on the other side, I can feel their feelings. Sorry. And so I could feel his feelings, and he was saying that he didn't know how he was going to cope, he didn't know how he was going to manage with the children, because we had my 2 children, 5 and 7 years old, in primary school, waiting for mum to pick them up, you know. And so it's every mum's worst enemy. And you know, I hate being late for anything. And so so he put his hand on my head, and he was thinking about, you know, how he was going to manage with Rebecca and Nathan and stuff. And I couldn't understand what was going on then. I knew then that could have been me. But I remember thinking, oh my God, what's going on? Then I sort of remember thinking, why am I not in my body? Why am I here? You know, and I remember my nan putting her arms around me. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And then I asked the questions. I then started saying, "What about Rebecca and Nathan?" You know, and before I actually, this sticks in my head. Before I actually had a chance to finish the sentence, "What about Rebecca and Nathan?" She said, "Everything's going to be okay. It's all going to be okay." So I didn't even have a chance to finish my sentence. They knew the time span is so different there. They come straight in before they know what you're going to say, you know, telepathically and everything. It was amazing. And that's what happened there. And then the ambulance arrived, and I remember them cutting my clothes off. And you know what? I absolutely think ambulance staff are absolutely amazing, because I was actually dead, but they were still talking to me. They were communicating with me, and I could hear them still. So it's a real weird thing. Even though I was out of my body, I could still hear them saying, "Everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay." And one of them started cutting off my coat, and it must have looked pretty expensive, which, you know, I can't afford expensive. And he started cutting my coat off, and he said, "I'm sorry, love, I'm going to have to cut your coat off." And I wasn't there. It makes no difference to me. And, you know, I remember him saying that. And I remember them trying to move me and stuff. And I remember then I remember where I was. I started sort of flipping out a little bit over there, because I remember they had like the paddles on my chest, and I didn't know what was going on. It was really hard to understand. I was there, but I could see this, I could feel it. I was in between two worlds, really. And, you know, bridging the realm, it's brilliant what you're saying, because it's so true. And I didn't know where I was meant to go, what was happening. And when they paddled my chest, literally, this is how it felt. It felt, you know, like the water slides you get at a water theme park. Okay, it was literally, you know, I was somewhere where it was warm and white light, and I was with my gran. And even though I was a bit confused, didn't know what was going on, I didn't feel the physical pain in my body. But when the paddle hit my chest, my heart started beating again, and I came straight down. It felt as if I was going down this tunnel, and I was whizzing around. I wasn't like going wee. It was great fun. Didn't feel like that at all. I just like straight in. And then the pain hit me, and I was like, oh my God, I was trembling. It was the shock in the body, and the ambulance team was saying, "We've got you, love, we've got you, hold on in there." And then I felt the physical pain. When I was in the ambulance, again, a couple of times, I kept on coming out of my body, and I could see the top of the ambulance. I saw the number written on the top of the ambulance and saw the sirens. They got me into UCHL in Euston. And I remember it was so strange. I must have popped out of my body, because I was looking down at it, and they put me into crash team or something. They said crash team. I remember hearing crash team. And I remember hearing lots of bells ringing and sounds. And then they began to cut all my clothes off me. I had team on my legs and my pelvis, team on my stomach, a team on my head and my neck. And I remember I didn't feel any pain. I'd stepped out my body again. And part of me was, not then, but when I look back, I was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. They cut my clothes off. They saw all my bits. And I was like, you know what your mum used, well, my mum used to say to me, always make sure you leave the house with clean pants on because you never know what's going to happen. And I'll tell you, later she came to visit me and she actually did say that to me when I was okay and they got me on the drips and the monitors and stuff. She actually whispered in my ear, I hope you did wear clean pants. And I was so annoyed. I was like, Mum. And it was just so funny, you know, what your mum says, you know. But at that time, I'd also stepped out and I was looking down at the team. And I was in for a couple of weeks and I didn't want the children to visit me the way I was. There was nothing that happened physically to my face, but I was scared what they might think. And it was the worst thing I did looking back. They should have come to visit me, to be honest. Children create images in their minds of what they think could be happening. So it would have been better for them to have come to see me. And then that was the process of then learning how to re-walk. When I returned home, I was sorry, I couldn't read the book to my son in his bed. He was on a bunk bed, and where my leg was so busted and my hips, I stayed on the sofa downstairs for months, maybe even a year. And when I came back, I felt like the broken self. I wasn't mummy anymore. I'd changed. I was diagnosed post-traumatic stress because I kept on constantly feeling the van hitting me. That's how my body was processing it. Yeah. And the guilt that I had about, you know, I'm supposed to be the mum there to protect my children and be the strong one, and yet I wasn't able to do that. But I became disabled. They pushed me around in a wheelchair and they were my voice. People are very peculiar. If, you know, the society, if they see you in a wheelchair, they don't think that you can actually hear. And I remember I was in the wheelchair. What was wrong with me was I was broken, my physical bones. But I wasn't broken, you know. And I remember they would shout as they'd spoken to me, like, are you okay? And Rebecca, my daughter, said, she can hear you. Her ears are working perfectly. It's her legs, you know. So, yeah, been disabled for about 4 years, learning to re-walk. And I'm absolutely fine now, you know. I can tell you like a weather gauge if it's going to be cold and damp because my foot plays up. But apart from that, and that was my big awakening. It was a life-changing experience. So there was no way I could have turned back after that. There you go, in a nutshell.
Yeah. Oh my God, wow, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you sharing this with us. I know so many people will benefit from hearing just you sharing this story, and also just having that knowing that, you know, you do, your body doesn't just, you don't just disappear. There is somewhere that you go and you do see your loved ones on the other side who were helping you throughout this whole thing. So it's so nice and comforting to hear that, because I know, especially yesterday, we were talking about the, you know, the whole death and anxiety and people having this huge fear of death, and it's because they just think they will disappear and they're not going to exist anymore. But that's so comforting to know that you actually, as soon as you step out on the other side, people are there for you, you know, you're never alone. So
you're never alone. And I've said this to many. I'm realizing, and I what I say to people is that your body, the physical body, is a shell, it's a vessel, like a car. And it's like when we, you know, we've got to take care of our cars, we get the MOTs, we service them, we put the right fuel in, you know, we take care of them, we clean them, you know, whatever, and we get them checked out every so often. And then, you know, once that car has, you know, no longer can do its job anymore, you know, like its engine or our heart sort of valves or whatever it is, or those main parts of a car, we then pop out, soul pops out and finds another vehicle. So, you know, I'm a real believer in that soul is an essence. It's all around you, and that essence decides whether it comes back or not. I mean, that whole episode led me to, you know, train as a past life practitioner. It started my whole avenue of going off in different directions of that experience, because I then was shown that, you know, we're not just finished. It doesn't just end here, that we go on, you know, there's the essence of that. And that's what I bring through when, as a medium, that their loved one, their personality, I try to enable their personality as much as I can to come through and work with me, and so that when the person sits in front of me, they're feeling as if they're sitting in the same room as them. So I'm not scared of dying, and I've done it a couple of times now, and I'm not scared of dying. I just keep getting sent back.
Yeah, you've had good training at dying, so I think. Yeah. Oh God, wow. But yeah, really, there's something really interesting you mentioned about the emergency team who were in the ambulance, who kept talking to you even though you were well, physically dead, you're appeared to be dead, but they continue to talk. And it's those little things that I've noticed that people can do. It just can make such a huge difference. And, you know, them speaking to you, and then on the other side, your nan was speaking to you and, you know, telling you everything was going to be okay. So I think it's almost like it kind of keeps you, I guess, anchored in a way, or like, you know, aligned.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I did a soul midwifery course not so long ago. And that was one of the things they said was the last thing to go was the hearing. And I really believe that's the connection back to, obviously, look, if that was my time to go, I would have gone.
Yeah.
You know, I see this from my guides that we all have a barcode telling us when we're going to expire. And no, by the way, I do not tell people when they're going to expire, because that's not my duty. That's not my job. And they wouldn't have given me the information anyway. But obviously on that day, I was not meant to die, and in the sense of not to come back. I was meant to come back, you know, and then move forward with the drama that happened in my life. You know, I know what it's like to be disabled at that particular time. I know what it's like to relearn to walk. I've had pain, and I've other things that have happened to me as well, you know, appendix burst. And, you know, I did it the best way. You know, I was on stage at the Globe Theatre doing a history tour, and I collapsed in front of 200 people. Fantastic. Appendix burst. They didn't get me then either. No fantastic experiences. But, you know, what I'm saying is when your time is up, you can't negotiate it. It's not a movie. You know, if it's your time, you're going to go, you'll go. But it really was a sign for me that, you know, come on, Anne, we've been trying to communicate with you, and let's know, you know, you have to sit there and listen. And a bit like the lockdowns and the pandemic, it's actually put everyone on pause, making them stop to reevaluate where they are. So I think sometimes we need to look at it not being such a negative thing. And for those who've lost their jobs and homes, and I know what that's like. I have a member of family who's going through that. But on the other side of that, when we look back, there might be a bigger reason for why, like re-navigating them in their life. I think we have to always hold on to the hope that it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. I know, yes, I completely agree. I think this is definitely the universe's way of telling us, right, you need to realign back into your purpose of what you came here to do, you know?
Definitely.
Even though it looks ugly and it's painful, and I know, but yeah, I think we do need to go through it. It's just because it's just our brains otherwise just don't allow us. Our egos are so attached to like these silly things.
I think if you look at it, if you think of the story of mankind and humans, how we are, and then the science bit again, up until the age of 7, we are programmed by our caregivers. So we are, our world, we formulate our world from how they see the world. So if you've got people around you saying, no, it's not real, it doesn't exist, or they might say comments like, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you're going to believe it. Your brain physically does not come online for you to be able to think for yourself up until the age of 7. So, you know, if you've been fed all this information, whatever information is, no, you can't do this because auntie blah, blah can't do that, or whatever, you know, the adults around you are telling you their life story. And so that you believe it, that you're not able to do certain things or not to believe in certain things. And it's your duty as a human being to go and do that personal development, to look at what's happening for you. And, you know, you can't whinge. You can whinge, but you whinge alone and it doesn't move you forward. And that's what I do with my clients, who I help them to look at what's the bigger picture, what's going on, and what's it teaching you right now. Everything's teaching us everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.